Well, there's nearly 680 pictograph sites found in the state of Montana. About 160 of those are found outside of the greater Helen area. You know, most drainages that flow into the Missouri, small and large, do have pictograph work in them of some kind. Some of the work's quite extensive. I know of others in a limestone cliff along the river's edge, but I don't try to point them out because they faded so much with time, they're almost impossible to see today. Now, as we come around this point of rock here in front of us on the right, folks, in just a moment we'll be viewing Mann Gulch. Mann Gulch is on the National Historic Registry. It is the site of the worst tragic event that ever took place in the history of the United States Forest Service smoke jumpers. August 5th, 1949, 13 smoke jumpers lost their life in Mann Gulch. It is to date the worst tragic event that ever took place in the history of the smoke jumpers. We hope it remains that way. If you're not familiar with smoke jumpers, folks, well, they're a very elite group of men and women who parachute out of airplanes into remote areas with hand tools to put out fires when they're first detected. Typically, they're small fires that the smoke jumpers will respond to in remote areas, get them put out before they become large. Missoula, Montana, which is 120 miles west of Helen, is home of Johnson Bell Field. Johnson Bell Field there in Missoula is a training facility for the smoke jumpers. It's also one of the larger smoke jumping facilities in the western states. If you ever get a chance and you find yourself in Missoula someday, they do offer a tour of the facility. It is amazing what the individuals do for a living. Not just anyone becomes a smoke jumper. What took place in Mann Gulch? Well, the 13 lives were taken by a fire that started by lightning. When we're in a position to do so, folks, if you look in the bottom of Mann Gulch, up into it, on the right-hand ridge, about halfway up that ridge line, lightning struck a tree and started a small fire on the evening of August 4th. Now, the fire was not officially seen and detected until about 10 o'clock in the morning on August 5th. The fire was spotted by Colorado Lookout Station, 30 miles southwest of Helen. Of course, when they spotted the small fire burning in a remote area of Mann Gulch, we'll get the smoke jumpers to put it out. So they dispatched out of Missoula a crew of men. It was approximately 3:30 in the afternoon on August 5th when the men parachuted into the head of Mann Gulch. Now, they landed at the very head of this drainage as we look into it on the left. The fire was burning on the right across from them. You know, at the time they entered the drainage, that fire was only about 60 acres in size. It wasn't an unusual fire. In fact, it was what they referred to at that time as a 10 o'clock fire. They'd have her out by 10 o'clock the next morning. The foreman of the crew that day was Wagner Dodge. And once Dodge got his men on the ground, got the fire evaluated, got them fed and organized, he determined the way to approach this fire was to bring his crew of men down the left-hand side, keep the fire crossing them on the other ridge. He wanted to get his men down here to the Missouri River. Once he got the men to the river, he would turn his crew of men and fight that fire going uphill, pretty much from the angle we're viewing now. Great plan. But unfortunately, after organizing the crew of men, started bringing them down the left-hand side. They had made it within about 600 to 800 yards of the Missouri River when they come up over the right of the hill, and below them a fire was burning. What had happened from the time they entered into that drainage, that fire crossing them, and it had been growing in size. Now, there's no doubt the men saw that, they witnessed it. What they did not realize, and what is studied so much today before anyone is ever placed on a fire line of any kind, is how dry the conditions were. And as the wind was swirling around in Mann Gulch on that hot August afternoon, it was carrying embers from the fire burning on the right. Those brands and embers were landing below the crew of men on the left, starting spot fires below them. And they didn't realize those spot fires were there until almost on top of them. Well, it only been within a moment or two after retreating up the steep slope when something else had been taking place at the bottom of Mann Gulch. All the right conditions had come together in this drainage to form what we often hear referred to as a fire blowing up. A blow-up occurs when we have the heat. Lots of vegetation, very dry conditions, a wind coming out of the north blowing across the Missouri River, feeding those spot fires, and when it blew up, folks, in the bottom of Mann Gulch, it literally turned into a monster. In fact, there are no words in the dictionary to describe to you what these men were up against that day. The only thing that I have found that I can share with you is later determined when this fire blew up the bottom of Mann Gulch, folks, that it burned nearly 3,000 acres in under 12 minutes. You try and comprehend that. They estimate the flames roared through Mann Gulch at 70 miles an hour. Well, there them smoke jumpers were on a slope that pretty much looks like what you have to your left, about a 70-degree slope. When Dodge realized that fire's blowing up on his crew of men, he gave out the order, Men, drop your heavy tools. Run for the top of the ridge. Find shelter. Safety on the other side. So they drop their Pulaskis, their